Welcome back to tutorials on using Ableton Live and producing music in it. In this tutorial we're going to look at adding in a pad chordal movement using the circle of fifths. So first of all, what is a pad sound? A pad sound is a type of sound that evolves over a longer time. In the previous tutorial we created our bass line, and our bass sound had a little bit more of a sharper attack with a sort of longish tail, whereas a pad sound will have a slow attack and would evolve over time with some different textural elements. In Ableton, on our instrument list, we can see we've got a category titled pad. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a MIDI track, and then I'm going to find a pad sound that I'm happy with. Alright, so we've got the Juno pad that I'm pretty happy with. So I'm going to create a MIDI clip, and on here we've got our piano roll which pops up for us. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is reference our circle of fifths. So I'll bring that up, and in the last tutorial we used the key of C. So we're going to write our pad sound, our pad chords in the key of C. Alright. Writing chords is really easy. Basically, first of all, a chord is more than two notes played at once. Now, if we look at our bass line, we have one note playing at any one time, and we do not have more than one note playing. In a chord sequence, we actually want more than one note playing at any one time. But what chords do we choose? So first of all, if we have a look at our bass line, we've got our root notes written in. So we went from C to G to F to A. So I'm going to just copy that over into the pad sounds. And this time I'm going to make sure that I'm above C2. So I'll start on C2, and I'm just going to expand it out for a full bar. Yes, and we also need to make sure that we've got 4 bars to sequence out our chords. Right, so we've got C2 there. The next note was our G. Then we have our F, and then finishing on the A. If we have a look at our circle of fifths, the way we create a chord on top of our root notes is very easy. The starting chord that we used in our Ableton project is, or the starting note is C. So what we're going to do is for each root note, we will count up in thirds and fifths. Okay, so what do we mean by thirds? Well, basically we count up. So C is 1, D is 2, E is 3. So in thirds, so C to E is a third. If we have a look at our Ableton session, what we'll do is we'll enter in a note a third above C on the E note. The second note, the last note that we're going to add to the C chord is going to be a fifth. So if we count up from C, C, D, E, F, G. A G is a fifth above our C note. So I'm going to add in our G. All right. Now we're going to the next chord in the second bar. So we're going to write a chord from the G root note. So starting on G, we're going to count up in thirds. So G, A, B. All right, so we add our B in. And then we're going to count up in fifths from G. So G, A, B, C, D. Okay. So it helps to reference the key signature, but once you become familiar enough and memorize the notes in that key, you don't always have to go back to it. It becomes a quicker process. So our next chord is F, so counting up a third from F is F, G, A. And a fifth from F is F, G, A, B, C. And finally, we have our A chord. So a third from A is A, B, C. and then a fifth from A is A, B, C, D, E. All right, there we have it. We've got our chord progression. Let's have a listen to that. All right, we're going to add our drum beat into it. All right, so that's a chord progression that works reasonably well. Now, the last thing that we're going to do is what we call smooth part writing. So you can see here my first chord is very low, and then it jumps up quite high to my second chord, drops down a little bit in my third chord, and then jumps up again to the highest part on the piano in our A chord. We need to smooth this out. We want the notes to have the smallest leaps between them. So although we're going to have a C chord here in the first chord, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bottom two notes and take them up the octave. So I'm going to select both notes and I'm going to slide it up, making sure that I slide the C2 up to the C3. So I'll slide it up to C3. Now you can see that although the bottom note is G, I'm still creating a C chord. Okay. Now you'll also notice that the E to D is quite a small step and the C to the B is a small step, and the G stays on the same note between the two chords. There's a lot of similar notes within this chord progression. As I move further into the third bar, I think that that's going to be an okay movement. There's not too many, the leap is not that big, but then over here on the final chord, I can see my E is sticking right up high on the top. What I could do is move my F up closer to the E on the third chord. So I could do that. So let's have a listen to that. All right. Or if I take that back down to the bottom F, I could take the E down to E2. Now let's have a listen. So small changes can have a big effect on the way we hear our chords. So you can see that although we're using the same chords and the same notes, by just moving and inverting the chords, it creates a completely different different feel with our chord progression. What I think I'm going to go with the chord, the E up the octave in E3, because I do like the way that the final chord and the first chord share that same E on E3. So just listen to that one more time. Okay, now let's add in our bass line and see how that sounds. So that is a very simple way to write a chord progression. Just remember, using the circle of fifths, you're selecting your root notes and adding extra notes, a third and a fifth above it. That's a surefire way to create a chord sequence that you know will sound good.